So, Dan, there's lots to discuss regarding Guardian L. Did you want to maybe talk about some of the possible yield increases, some of the rates that we use?
Sure. And, as you were talking there, I couldn't help but think, Isaiah, the plants can take up nitrogen in both forms, both the ammonium and the nitrate form. And I think there's a common misconception out there, maybe not as prevalent as it was, 10, 15, 20 years ago, that these nitrification inhibitors, that these nitrogen additive products were making the nitrogen unavailable to the plant. Now with the Guardian L, it just keeps it, as Isaiah said, keeps it in the ammonium form longer. Plants can take it up, but it reduces it from leaching. Several years ago, there was a research trial and study that was conducted by Purdue University, and that looked at, on heavy soils with every inch of rain, how much nitrate nitrogen could move in the soil. And on heavy soils, nitrate nitrogen would move up to 6 inches with every inch of rain. And on lighter, sandier soils, it would move up to 12 inches with every inch of rain. So if you had a spring like last year where you were getting a lot of rain, who knows what this spring's going to be and bring. But if you get a lot of rain, typically in the spring, there's the opportunity to lose a lot of that nitrogen with that moving. When we're looking at Guardian L, typically we've got a couple of rates that we look at. And there's a couple of different ways to consider using Guardian L. So a typical way to look at it is when you're band applying it, whether that's 2x2, whether that's through the 360 Y drops, whether that's through a drop nozzle, where you're pretty much controlling it in a band. We typically look at a rate of 1.5 quarts per acre. If you're broadcasting, such as you're going out broadcasting your manure across the ground and then working it in, typically there, because we're in contact with so much more soil, we need to use a higher rate of the Guardian L to get more DCD out there to impact more of the bacteria in the soil. In that instance, we're going to typically look at 3 quarts per acre. Another way to consider using the product would be based on the CEC of your soil. So in that instance, if you're band applying it on, say, a soil that has a CEC of 10 or less, there we could look at the 3 quart rate. If your CEC on your soil is between 10 and 15, you could look at 2.25 quarts. And if your CEC of the soil is over 15, then you could look at 1.5 quarts. However, when you look at that, I think the 1.5 quart rate is going to be the most economical. And typically what we're seeing is two things. We're seeing a significant increase in yield of around 7-8 bushels per acre, possibly more, depending upon the type of the soil, depending upon the year. But also, because we're controlling that ammonia and reducing the potential for losing nitrogen, we can reduce the total amount of nitrogen that's produced by up to 20%. So you've got the opportunity for increasing your return on investment through increased yields, keeping that nitrogen in that root zone longer to get additional 7, 8, 9 or more bushels, as well as utilizing less expense on your nitrogen. Yes, the Guardian is going to cost you a little bit, but as Francis Child talked about, if you had previously been using anhydrous, invest the same amount of money on Guardian and UAN, and you're going to be far better off. So those would be some of the rates, some of the responses that we've seen across a lot of different country, that's kind of a national average that we're seeing for the response with the Guardian L.